Well, Prez, as we go into these back-to-back games on back-to-back nights for the college football semifinals, let's look at the look-ahead lines for the championship game just to show you where Vegas and the bookmakers have these teams ranked. If Ohio State wins, they are going to be a 9.5-point favorite against Penn State and an 8.5-point favorite against Notre Dame. If Texas wins, they're going to be a 3-point favorite against Penn State and a 2.5-point favorite against Notre Dame. So basically, we have the third and fourth best team matching up here with the top two teams playing tomorrow. Now, I will say this. People make so much of Penn State having hosted SMU and then playing Boise. Basically, two non-Power 5 teams. Remember, SMU was in the American Conference last year, so they're only in their first season as the ACC. But when I went to my power ratings and compared SMU and Boise against Notre Dame's path, who hosted Indiana and then played Georgia without their quarterback, the schedules are very similar. When you take away Georgia's quarterback and change their power rating, basically they've played the same schedule. So what have we done? We've seen that the Penn State Nittany Lions scored 38 and 31 points in their two games, while Notre Dame got past Indiana 27-17, got that early lead. And against Georgia, they only had 244 yards against Georgia. They did put up 23 points because of the +2 turnovers and the score. That was not an offensive score. I look at this and I say, I like what Penn State can do versus Notre Dame relative to the other way around. Now, what Notre Dame does is they are an incredible cover team against wide receivers. Their QBR was 90.3. That was the third best out of all the Power 5 teams. But when you're playing against the tight end, those numbers aren't nearly as good. And let's remember, Tyler Warren for Penn State, 98 catches, 1,158 yards, 8 touchdowns, is the best tight end in all of football. I look at Penn State. We saw them lose to Ohio State back a few weeks ago in mid-October. They only had 270 yards. They made a big adjustment at that point. 12 personnel means you're playing 2 tight ends, and they have a lot of good tight ends. Up until the Ohio State game, they only played 12 personnel 25% of the time. Since that time, good coaches make adjustments, and they have made those adjustments. They're playing almost 60% of all play calls are in the number 12 offensive formation. Notre Dame has played a very weak schedule, number 56 in the country, by far the lowest of all the remaining playoff teams, and they have seen the 5th lowest number of 12 formations in the country. So Penn State is able to line up and do something Notre Dame has not had success in or not had a lot of success of it. Can Penn State stop Notre Dame's rush attack? Love 1,000+ yards, 7.3 yards per carry. And we saw what Riley Leonard can do. But this Penn State team has a very good rush defense. On the year, they're allowing 3.1 yards per carry. And I think they can slow down both Love and Leonard, where Allen and Singleton for Penn State, over 2,000 combined yards, both guys over 5 yards per carry, to me, actually has an edge in the running back. I like Penn State, but my best bet here for WagerTalk today is going to be under 21.5 in the first half. I know we're laying a point or two less than really half the number, but these teams, the adjustments they make at halftime, I'll be happy cashing that first half ticket, and these teams will be desperate in the second half. We'll see some weird things in quarters 3 and 4 of this game this evening. Well, Ohio State is the most talented team in college football. Granted, they lost to Oregon on the road. They lost to Michigan. They have 2 losses. But when I look at the talent both of these teams have, when Ohio State plays to their potential and Texas plays to their potential, Ohio State would be a double-digit favorite. I think there's actual value here with the Buckeyes laying 6. They're a team that's made incredible adjustments. I think they made the best adjustments in college football since the final regular season game. Listen, Ryan Day and the OC got cocky, saying, we can beat Michigan on the ground. We're going to line it up. we're going to run it inside the tackles. And what happens? 26 carries, 77 yards, 252 total yards in the game, scoring 10 points in the 13-10 loss. Listen, you have Jeremiah Smith, you have Abuke, you have Carnell Tate, you have two running backs that have topped 1,800 yards. You need to throw the ball downfield to open up that pass game. And they've done just that. We've seen what they've done the last two games, passing for 317 and 319. They topped 300 yards at Oregon passing. They topped 400 yards against Western Michigan passing. Up until that time, those are the only two games the Buckeyes have passed for over 300 yards since, putting up 319 against Tennessee and 318 against Oregon. So we've seen what Jeremiah Smith can do. And when you pass the ball downfield, even if you don't complete it, it opens up those rush attacks for Henderson and Judkins. Ohio State's defense is what really has impressed me. One opponent has gained over 300 yards this season. That was Oregon on the road back in October. The last 6 games, 276, 256, 234, 214, 151, 251. An amazing job on the defense. And the one thing that I did notice was this. Jim Knowles came over from Oklahoma City, has done a good job this year getting his team ready to be here. Well, they were normally a single high safety defense. What they did, though, in the last few games after Michigan is they went to a cover 2. They've gone to that cover 2 almost every play the second half. And how did they get so much success with that? They brought in a cornerback to play safety. They let Caleb Downs now be the rover, and we've seen what he does stopping the stop unit. The changes on offense, the changes on defense, the best talent in football. And yes, Texas is in the semifinals, but I am not impressed with a Clemson win. I am not impressed with the Arizona State win. The only other team they played with the winning records were those Georgia and Georgia teams that they lost to both. To me, they still have not been there and done that. I do give them a 1-point home edge being in Arlington where the Cowboys play. The Buckeyes have good feelings. They beat Oregon for the national championship here, and Buckeye Nation will travel. So while there may be much more burnt orange around, Buckeyes inside the stadium will at least have 40% of the crowd, so I'm not worried about that in-state touch. Prez, I'm going to do the same thing here. Both teams are going to run the ball much more than they passed in the first half. I like under 26.5 in the first half, Ohio State, Texas. And again, I do like the Buckeyes as well.
Yeah, we're going to take a couple of overs here. I'm going to look at Jaden Daniels over 22.5 completions. You just throw out last game where he only had 6 completions, got taken out of the game. 5 previous games, 24 completions, 24, 25, 25, 25. So he's been getting over this. And Tampa Bay's pass defense is awful. Like if you watch Tampa, their pass defense is atrocious. They are 30th in passing yards, 31st in attempts, 28th in passing touchdowns, and 32nd in completion. And they give up 25.4 completions per game. Number feels really low, 22.5. I'm really surprised this isn't like a 23.5, 24.5. I'm not really sure what the discount is. Maybe because Jaden's been nursing an injury, but he didn't play a whole lot last week. The weather looks great in this game, so I'm thinking Jaden Daniels has a good game. That's the way to attack Tampa. We're also going to look at J.K. Dobbins over 14.5 rush attempts. He was out for a month. He comes back. They give him the ball 19 and 18 times. He's fresh. Houston gives up 21 rush attempts. And, I mean, Perez, this could be just a Harbaugh special where they get up 7-0 and it's just run the ball. You're not saving J.K. Dobbins for anything now. It's playoff time. Harbaugh's going to just ride the horse that got him there. And I think this number's too low again. Don't be surprised if he gets to 20 rush attempts. It's an amazing prop. Over 4.5 rebounds plus assists. Prez, he's hit this in 19 out of 20 games. 19 out of 20. It's an insane streak. He did it again last night for us and for clients. So we're going to take him again. He's averaging 7 rebound chances and 3.7 potential assists in the last 20 games. And here's the other thing about this. They played Cleveland. On paper, Cleveland is absolutely a much better team. What a gigantic letdown spot for Cleveland. Coming off that insane game against Oklahoma City. I mean, this is This is the definition of a letdown spot. Toronto, the Raptors stink, but I think they're going to have a little bit more energy. I mean, both teams are off a back-to-back, but I watched a lot of that Cleveland OKC game. That was an all-out effort, like kitchen sink type of game. That was absolutely a playoff atmosphere. So don't be surprised if Cleveland's a little bit lackadaisical here. But really, we're just riding Grady Dick over 4.5 rebounds and assists. It's been a cash cow. Yeah, it's juicy, but man, I'll gladly take under 3.5 shots on goal. He's gone under in 15 out of 19 games. And he plays the Devils. The Devils are third in shots on goal, and they're number one allowing shots on goal from forwards. So this is just a monumental task here. He's gone under in 11 out of the last 13 games he's played against the Devils. So this 3.5 shots on goal is just way, way too high. It's a brutal matchup. He hasn't been doing it recently. And anytime you can fade the Rangers right now, you're probably in a good place.
Let's go. Extra board games real quickly. 306-534 Eastern Kentucky -2.5 and 3. And 306-535 All Albany minus the 10, 10.5, and 11. A regular board, I'll go quick, Prez, forgive me. 827 Pacific +16.5. 833 Portland +21. 833 Portland +21, forgive me. 843 Cal Poly +15. 866, 766 Stony Brook +6.5. 818 UC Davis -6.5. 805 Grand Canyon -2. 783 Liberty -3. Couple totals. 804 under 153 North Dakota or Roberts. 800 under 158 VMI Sanford. 772 under 155, 154, 153 Elon West and William and Mary. 778 under 162.5 Delaware NC-A&T. 815 over 148 Tennessee State Linden.
You've got Roman Kopylov versus Chris Curtis. Now you've got Kopylov here. He is a kickboxer who has started to add wrestling to his game. And your side here, you've got Chris Curtis, an MMA vet who has some nice boxing. Now, the reason why I do believe this line is wide is for two reasons. I think the first thing is the fact that Chris Curtis is 37 years old. And on the other side here, you've got Roman Kopylov, who's on a 5-1 run. Now, that does sound great, but when you're looking at who he's beat, it's not that impressive at all. I mean, he's beaten guys like Alessio Di Chirico, who's 1-5 in the UFC, currently cut from the organization. Claudio Ribeiro, 1-3 in the UFC, currently cut from the organization. Also, Josh Fremd, 2-4, and probably should be cut from the organization. And then you've got Chris Curtis, who has really fought ranked guys, high-level guys, and even you look at most recently against Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen is a guy that is very tough, and he was able to go 5 rounds with him in a very close fight. He goes out there and fights guys like Joaquin Buckley, Jack Hermanson, Kelvin Gastelum. I mean, these guys are far beyond anything that Roman Kopylov has had to face at this point. And now you're looking at a step up in competition, and he's roughly around a -275 favorite on the Kopylov side. I think that line is too wide. And when you look at the path to victory here and the key to victory for Curtis is really just the way he fights should really give problems to Kopylov, where he likes to be in the pocket, likes to strike, likes to utilize the boxing, counter striking. And the other part is the boxing and staying in the pocket is going to smother some of that kicking offense that Roman really is able to utilize. Also, the fact that this is going to be in the smaller Apex cage in Las Vegas. And I do believe, again, it's going to really hurt him to utilize space and work his striking. Now, lastly, is the part that the big red flag, I think, on the Kopylov side is the fact that he doesn't have good cardio. You know, you've seen it early where he can be explosive. He's got good footwork, got good movement, and all of a sudden things start to tilt down as the fight goes on. We just saw Chris Curtis go a hard 5 rounds. I think that he can outpace Kopylov. I think he can outland him. And I think throughout this fight, as it gets deeper, it's going to go on the Kopylov side that he's going to really start to slow down, and you're going to see Chris Curtis pick it up. So at this plus number here, I think that it's a good price here, plus 220. I think it's a good spot for Curtis. Got Bashi, who is a hype train. He's 23 years old, 13-0, starts to really look the part. And then Christian Rodriguez, the other side here, well-rounded fighter, and he has been the prospect killer. Now, he is coming off a loss, but he just had back-to-back wins over undefeated prospects coming into the UFC. And his big key is these guys were grapplers and wrestlers, and he was able to just outpace them, be patient. And when he's taken down, one of the best qualities that Rodriguez has is his scrambling ability. And a lot of times these guys come into the UFC, they're very comfortable with, hey, I can take a guy down in other organizations, and there's not much resistance. There's not much that they really have to go against. And Rodriguez is a guy that's never going to be comfortable laying on his back. He's going to consistently work, look for reversals, look for transitions. And now he's about to face on Saturday night another hype train, undefeated wrestler in Austin Bashi. Now, Bashi is going to be diving at legs. He's going to be shooting for takedowns. But again, it fits into what Rodriguez is comfortable with. He wants to have those opportunities to scrap and wrestle. And then as the fight goes on, start to drain the cardio. And you've got Bashi. He's 23 years old, at a UFC debut, and a step up in competition, I think, is a lot. And then you also look at that Rodriguez has fought high, decent caliber UFC fighters, where you look at Bashi, although he's 23 years old, he's not going to fight the highest level guys outside of the UFC, but this is a big step up. I mean, the guys that he fought outside of the UFC were losing outside of the UFC also. And the records of some of these guys, 8-4, 9-7, 15-33. I mean, these guys are never going to see the UFC. And I think that this is a wide line overall. You got a 23-year-old against a guy who really has looked good, a good stylistic matchup here. So in this spot here, again, I'm taking the plus money. I think the line is too wide at about plus 225. I think C-Rod is the right side.